Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot and a member of the PMDG 777 beta team. In this tutorial I want to show you how pilots typically use the lights of the aircraft in the cockpit at night. Now, night flying is very common on long-haul flights. Typically on every rotation you have at least one night flight, because either you fly westbound or you fly eastbound, and one of the two typically goes through the night, or if you fly north or southbound, airlines often plan the flight so that you depart in the evening and land at the destination in the morning so that passengers can simply sleep on the flights. Now, let's go ahead and have a look into how 777 pilots are going to use their lights. Now, we start with the easy shortcut to everything you have available in the 777, and that is the Stormlight. Now, the Stormlight button is located right up here, and what this does is it simply turns everything to maximum brightness. So, if I turn the Stormlight out, you can see that now all the lights are going much darker to their individual light settings, but if I hit the Storm button, then all the lights are going full bright. The original idea behind that button was that in case you are getting into an area where thunderstorms are frequent, you can turn everything to maximum brightness by just clicking a single switch, so that your eyes are adapting to a brighter setting, so that in case a lightning strike happens, you don't get blinded that easily. However, pilots typically use this just to light everything up as they like. Now, there's two kinds of pilots on long-haul flights. One of them prefers to have maximum brightness in the entire flight deck, and the other one prefers to have minimum brightness in the flight deck. A mix between the two really doesn't happen all that often. The advantage of using maximum brightness is that you are just not falling asleep as quickly. When the human body senses that it's getting dark, then it starts to get tired, and by turning everything to full bright, basically you avoid that to a certain extent. And I'm not saying that you can avoid it totally, but at least you can avoid it to a certain extent. Now, if we take this principle further, then we have to see that if it is bright, then the human eye adjusts to that brightness level. And this means that you will barely be able to see anything outside. So, for example, in weather or in light conditions as we have them in the cockpit right now, we would pretty much not be able to see anything outside. You would just have a black hole outside your front window until eventually the sun starts to come up. By the way, this is a view that you will never get tired of in your long-haul flying career. The sun coming up is probably the best part of any night flight. Okay, so let's go ahead with the second kind of pilot, and the second kind of pilot prefers it rather dark. The advantage of that can kind of be seen over here as well. If we turn the Stormlight on, it's rather hard to see outside. If you turn it off, then you can start seeing quite a bit better on the outside. And this means it's going to be much easier to see any weather phenomena ahead of you. For example, you might be able to see the tops of some thunderstorm clouds, or you might be able to see any contrails that might come with clear air turbulence and stuff like that. So dimming the aircraft down has the advantage of being able to see outside, and you also would use a scenario like this on takeoff and landing at night in order to make it easier for your eyes to adjust to the outside to see better and to be able to see better in case of an evacuation. Now, let's go ahead and have a look at a couple of the individual light controls that we have. So, many of the backlights, so the green lighting you have over here or the display lighting, are by default tied to the master brightness switch that you have up here. So if we zoom out a little bit and have a look at a change in the master brightness, you can see that this changes the brightness of almost the entire cockpit's backlighting. The only changes or the only systems that are not affected are the floodlights, which we can control individually. Now let me just turn them off to show you the effect of the master brightness once more. Okay, here we are. So, if I now change the master brightness, you can see how this changes the brightness of pretty much the entire flight deck. And this is what the master brightness does. In order for master bright to work, you got to have all the individual light controls that you want to control in their middle position, so facing this green dot that you have over here. And if they are in the middle position, in the green dot, then the master brightness is capable of controlling the individual selections. Now, normally, if you really want to darken the flight deck, you would go for a layout like this. Of course, also dim your annunciators. So you would go for something like this. And this enables your eye to adjust to the outside brightness quite a bit easier, and therefore makes it much easier to see outside. Now, during takeoff and landing, some pilots just like to turn a little bit of the backlighting on the main panel on, something like this, for example. So, like this, you can kind of see that there is an airplane in front of you, and it doesn't look like you're flying into a completely black hole. That effect can be a little bit annoying at times, and pilots typically tend to try and avoid it as much as possible. Now, in my experience, the MCP backlight is rarely used. However, if you want to control it, you can find it up here. So some pilots tend to turn this on a little bit, but personally I've never been a great fan of it, so I usually just left it off and would use the backlighting of the main panel here, just so that I know that there is an aircraft in front of me and that I'm not sitting there going into a black hole. Likewise, the control stand and pedestal lighting is often going to be dimmed up slightly or turned up slightly. The background for that is that you're able to see anything that's lying down over here. So if you turn this completely dark, then you might just not be able to see anything that you put down there, like a pen, food, all the important stuff. So normally you would just turn that up slightly so that you're still able to see anything you put down here. Now, when you change duties with the third pilot, then you also have a floor light down here which you can use, like this, in order to light up the backside of the cockpit a little bit. But normally this would just be left in the off position. So if you aim for a dark flight deck setup, then something like this is what you would normally use. Some people turn the main panel backlighting off, others turn them on. That really comes down to the individual pilot. In any case, regardless of what your setup currently is, you can just go to full bright by clicking the storm button at any moment, and that's just going to turn on all the individual lights there are. I hope that you enjoyed this little insight into flying during daylight, or rather flying with a daylight-ish setup in your cockpit, flying with a very dark setup. Personally, I'm kind of a fan of keeping it all bright because it just makes it much easier to avoid falling asleep. But especially when there are thunderstorms showing up on the weather radar, might just turn the entire lights down to a similar setup like this one over here, so that you can see the clouds ahead in a little bit nicer manner. I hope that this provides a little bit of an insight. As always, if you're interested in more, be sure to like, comment to let me know what you think about it, and subscribe to the channel so that you get notified of new videos. And if you really like what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Finally, if you're interested in a full 777 tutorial including a lot of backgrounds and inputs from real 777 pilots, I can very much recommend you to check out my Ultimate 777 Guide ebook. More on that in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again on the next one.